Hello guys, welcome back to our channel. So in today's video, we're gonna talk about cocktails. So this is the video about how I built my home bar. Let's get to it. Just for disclaimer, this is about taste and preference. So doesn't mean my taste is gonna be the same like your taste or your preference, but the best tips and trick to build your home bar is always start with the cocktail that you like. So now, since I love old fashions, which is my favorite cocktail all the time, so I always build with my preference cocktail. Number one is going to be old fashioned, which is my favorite. So I got myself a bourbon. There is a lot of cocktail that you can use with bourbon. For example, you have old fashions, you have boulevardier, mint julep, there is tons. Bourbon, I consider one of the workhorse of cocktail, which is I always have it, always in my home bar. Next, the other workhorse in my home bar cocktail is gin. Probably I've been doing cocktail for about 3 years now, and I use a lot of gin. And what I like about gin, you can always infuse it with a lot of kind. For example, you can infuse it with butterfly pea tea, which is give you that blue purplish color. Or if you want to go with Earl Grey tea, that's perfect also. So you can make the Earl Grey infused gin to make martini cocktail. Next on my list is rum. I have 3 bottles of rum over here. I have white or light rum. I have amber or gold rum. And then I have black rum. I just learned a lot of tiki cocktail. You're gonna need tons of rum. But for the basic one, for example, if you wanna make daiquiri, dark and stormy, mojito, you can use this rum. Is gonna cover everything. Now, when you talk about tiki, we're gonna talk on the separate occasions, because in tiki you need tons of rum, and there is a lot of different types of rums. Next on my list is rye. As you know, one of my favorite cocktail of all time, which is old fashions, is considered classic cocktail. When I check on the recipe about classic cocktail, you're gonna use a lot of rye also. For example, old fashions. If you like a lot of spice, then you can substitute the bourbon into rye. And then from rye itself, I like Sazerac, which is coincidentally is the brand over here. But I like Sazerac also, which is one of the cocktail classics, and one of the famous cocktail. Manhattan will require rye to make it. Next is vodka. Vodka is one of the most versatile since it has neutral taste. I love vodka just because, you know, you can make espresso martini with it, which is, if you love coffee, for coffee flavor out there, espresso martini, one of the best. One other thing that you can make with vodka is Black Russians. And then one of the famous cocktail that made with vodka is Cosmopolitan. Next, we have tequila and mezcal. Probably you guys wondering why I don't have the Blanco tequila over here, because most of the recipe that I use, I'm using the Reposado tequila. I quite like the taste on the Reposado compared to the Blanco, and then the mezcal is pretty much give you that smoky taste on your cocktail. One of the example you can use with tequila is Paloma, Margarita. I know a lot of people will say, well, margarita usually use Blanco tequila, but I try with Blanco tequila, I try with Reposado tequila, I prefer Reposado tequila. Like I told you guys, this video is based on my taste or my preference. One of the example for mezcal, you can make mezcal mule or saladito. Now let's move on to the next one. Next, I have Scotch. The Scotch over here is blended Scotch, not a single malt. So on cocktails, I prefer blended Scotch just because it has a little bit more complex taste than single malt. Single malt is nice, just drink it on the rock or neat. But for a cocktail, prefer always blended Scotch. Yes, there is some cocktail that probably I'm leaning toward single malt, but 80 to 90% I'm going to use a blended Scotch. Cocktails that use blended Scotch, in this case, that is Penicillins, Godfather, Rob Roy, and you can find online there is plenty of them. So next on my list, I have Cognac or brandy. So now, if you're asking what was the difference between brandy and Cognac, Cognac is a type of brandy but has a more specific distillation process, and it comes from Cognac region, which is southwest France, and uses white grapes. Most of the time, Cognac has more consistent flavor. This is why I like to use Cognac compared to brandy. Now, cocktail that use brandy or Cognac is the most popular, probably sidecar. I know sidecar use brandy, but I always substitute my brandy with Cognac, because let's say if I make Cognac and I have to change the ratio, I know I need to change the ratio on the liquor, but not on the hard liquor. But for example, probably I change a little bit on the lemon or even the sugar. Let's move on to the next. Next on my list, I have aperitif. So aperitif is a drink that you take before the meal just to stimulate your appetite. So over here I have Campari, Lucarno, and Amaro Nonino. Usually if in the recipe doesn't mention specific brand, so most of the time I'm using Amaro Lucarno. If you can find this, you can use the Montenegro or Averna. But for example, on the recipe of pepper plant, that specifically needs the Amaro Nonino, and then obviously for Negroni, then you will need Campari. Now we move to Vermouth. Vermouth is a wine base, so you have to remember whenever after you open a bottle of Vermouth, you have to store it on your fridge, and then usually it's good approximately between 2 to 4 months. So I have 3 different Vermouth over here. I have sweet Vermouth. If you like Manhattan, you're gonna use a lot of sweet Vermouth. Martini will use the dry Vermouth, and then for Blanc Vermouth, specifically I have here is Lillet Blanc. I use it to make white Negroni. Now, on my next list is bitters, aromatic bitters, or orange bitters, or chocolate bitters. In this case, the bitters that I use the most is these 3 bitters. If you guys see the video from the beginning, I told you already, which is Old Fashioned is my all-time favorite cocktail. In the recipe of the old fashions, you will need bourbon, Angostura aromatic bitters, and sugar cube or simple syrup. Now, the second one that I like is sazerac, which is you're gonna use the Peychaud bitters. For the orange bitters, I usually use it on Wisconsin's old fashions. I always try different type of old fashions just because I love old fashions. So why not? Now we move on to the next one, the fruit liquors. In this case, orange liquor. On all my recipe, I use a lot of orange liquor. Cointreau, triple sec, dry curacao, that's considered orange liquor. Now, for the triple sec and Cointreau, they have the similarity of the taste. The dry curacao has a drier, a little bit sweeter than the Cointreau or triple sec. So if, depending where you live, if you cannot find Cointreau, you can always substitute Cointreau with the triple sec, and vice versa. If you couldn't find triple sec, you can always substitute it with Cointreau. Now we move on to syrups. You're gonna use a lot of syrups. In this case, I have 4 kinds of syrups that I use the most. Number 1 that I use all the times is simple syrups. And then I have Demerara syrups, grenadine syrups, and then agave syrups. Most of the cocktail recipes that requires lime or lemon, they're gonna use either a Demerara syrup or simple syrup. Most of tequila based or mezcal based cocktails, 90% you're gonna use agave, and then there is a little bit of recipe you're gonna use grenadine. I'm gonna explain to you about simple syrups and the Demerara syrup. For these two, there is 3 types of syrups. So you will have simple, semi, and rich. What is the difference? In simple syrup, meaning 1:1 ratio, meaning 1 part of sugar and 1 part of water. While semi, you just up a little bit, which is 1.5 part of sugar and 1 part of water. While rich syrup, meaning 2 parts of sugar and 1 part of water. So that's all my list about the hard liquor that I use on my home bar. I still have a couple more bottle, but I'm not gonna put it over here because that's one require, that's more into specific cocktails. So if you have any questions about this home bar building, you can always ask me through the comment sections and I will try to answer all of your questions. And for the next time, I'm gonna explain about the sweet liquor or fruit liquors because that's require another video. All right, so that's it for our today's video. If you like this video, please give us a like, comment, share, and please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.